We're a day away from the start of the season. Geno Auriemma is embarking on his 40th year. Let's celebrate him and his staff as we await the start of potentially his 12th title run. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, as always, we take a moment to share some news. We've had some great co-hosts this last month or 28 days or so with Emily Adams of the Hartford Courant, Dan Meehan of Exit 68, doing some great things for me on the men's side. October was huge. November is going to be even better as we start the season. We're watching our community grow really quickly. It's all thanks to listeners like you. So special shout out to my everydayers. And finally, here's something we're also doing. 10% of our revenue goes to Bleeding Blue for Good. Another 10% goes to the Husky Ticket Project, which is near and dear to my heart because they're helping underserved communities throughout the state of Connecticut, getting people to UConn basketball and football games. So that means every follow, download, subscription helps support UConn athletes and also helps kids get to games that they otherwise would not be able to go to. So if you're enjoying the content here, it's not only just about subscribing. You're helping out people in the community. You're helping athletes at the school reach their goals. So wherever you listen, subscribe, listen to the audio. Together, we're building something special. I can feel it and help making the world like a real difference for Husky fans everywhere. Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, today's episode is kind of a special one. We're a day away from actual gameplay on the women's side, at least for the UConn women. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to dedicate the show to the man who started it all, Geno Auriemma. As he embarks on his 40th season at UConn, it's so wild to say that number out loud, in particular because I'm 43 years old. So he's been at UConn since I was 3 years old, just to kind of give some perspective on that. Auriemma stands as more than just a coach. He's a legend, an architect of the most successful and best program in college sports. And now as he nears the title of all-time winningest coach, he's reluctantly facing a year of well-deserved celebrations. And before I even go into, because I wrote this episode today that makes a lot of sense for me in kind of paying tribute to this. And I took some quotes from much better writers than I that he spoke to about all of this over the last few days and weeks. What I love about Geno is I know there's going to be celebrations. I know there's going to be people that are wanting to put him out there and prop him up, but he's not doing it in a way that's like what Coach K did at Duke, essentially, right? Tara Vanderveer, you could say the same thing. No one really, under the radar, all-time winningest coach. But with Coach K, it was, hey, it's my last year. Give me things. At halftime, give me a plaque or an award. And with Geno, if it was up to him, he would keep things low key. He said, quote, we should have had the 40. This is my favorite quote of any of this. We should have had the 40th celebration in the bubble year. And what he meant by that is he quoted and said, I should have started here 5 years earlier. I should have come here in 81 and we would have had it in the bubble and people couldn't even ask you questions and talk to you because they all had their masks on. So, I guess he's admitted that would have been fantastic to not actually see the faces of people. Geno would have preferred to skip the spotlight and just focus on the game and maybe enjoy a quiet glass of red wine as he does at home after a solid win. However, this season will be anything but understated. UConn is marking the milestone with a series of tributes, including a 5-part docuseries called Setting the Standard on UConn Plus, which I've started to watch a little bit. It's fantastic. Really great production value. Really highlighting the 4-decade journey alongside associate head coach Chris Dailey, who will get her own tribute in this episode. UConn is also hosting a grand celebration on November 20th, during which former players will return to Gamble Pavilion to honor Auriemma and Dailey's extraordinary contributions to the program. If UConn wins its first 3 games, including their season opener against Boston University, Auriemma will break Stanford's Tara Vanderveer's record and become the college basketball's winningest coach. Reflecting on his legacy, Geno spoke about how difficult it's been to come to terms with everything he's achieved at UConn. Quote, it's very, very difficult to come to grips with one, being in this place for this long, and two, having happened what happened during those 40 years. He added, there's people that have done great things, but I'm not sure for 40 years. And there's people that have been doing it for 40 years that haven't done those things. So to have both of them happen, it's hard to wrap yourself around that, end quote. Well, what's interesting to me about that is Geno he seems audacious, he seems gregarious, but the more I watch his press conferences and go back and watch press conferences from years ago, you can see that kind of reluctant legend that he is. That it's very hard for him. He reminds me of this. In my travels, if you will, in my time in this world, I've been around a lot of different industries, and one of my favorites is stand-up comedy. And I think for me, I know this is kind of like a total sideways, and if you're watching this, you're kind of thinking, what's he talking about? But Geno reminds me of really funny people who don't really necessarily want to be on all the time, but when they are, they're on. Like they are the best, right? And I've been around some really incredible stand-ups who you want to be around because they're interesting people and they tell great stories. But when they're in their element and they're kind of in their bubble, if you will, to use his term, they don't want to be bothered, and they only want to do it when it's time to perform. And I think that's kind of what I feel like that's Geno's essence. And if I ever get a chance to interview him, I would be interested to hear his perspective on that. Is, artists, people who are in the public eye sometimes come across as they want the spotlight, they want to be there at all times. Maybe they crave it, and I think there's a part of them that does, but there's also a part of them that hates it because they wish they could just go about their business like a normal person and do their job. And he's done it so well and with such excellence that people want more from you. And when we return, we'll talk about him breaking the record for wins over Tara Vanderveer at 12-14. Geno is right behind her. If he wins all three, he'll be past her. I think he's at 12. I'll look that up before we get back from the break. Coming up after this. Hey guys, let's be real. Sometimes life gets busy and that can impact your confidence when it comes to intimacy. But with Hims, taking care of yourself is easier than ever. Hims provides access to doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, even generics that are up to 95% cheaper than the name brands. The process is straightforward. Just answer a few questions online and a medical practitioner will determine the right treatment for you. No waiting rooms, no uncomfortable doctor visits, just discreet, effective care delivered straight to your door. With thousands of satisfied users, Hims is trusted to help you find the ED solution that works for you. So why wait? Start your free online visit today by going to hims.com/lockedon. That's hims.com/lockedon. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Okay, you're back on Locked On UConn. Yes, Geno Auriemma is on the precipice of becoming the all-time winningest basketball coach in Division I basketball history. He sits at 12-13. Tara Vanderveer is at 12-16. I will be at the North Carolina game on November 15th in Greensboro. Hopefully with my media pass dangling. If not, I'll likely be in the stands if I can't acquire that. But if I'm covering the game, I'll be interested to see the reaction to him tying the game in a neutral site. I'm sure they'll have some kind of festivity, if you will. At least the team will. He's the fastest ever to get to 1,200 wins, doing so in his 39th season last year. Before that, it was Coach Krzyzewski, but that was 47 years. Tara Vanderveer, I think she got there in 45 seasons, so that was kind of the standard. What's interesting to me is the comments he made last February when he got to 1,200 wins. He said that he didn't feel like he would be the all-time winningest coach for long, which is wild for me to think, because I didn't do a deep dive on this at all. But I'd imagine 1,216 plus wins, or whatever the total ends up being at the end of this year, unless he plans on retiring in the next year or so, he's going to get to 1,300 wins. Because it's essentially this season, plus if you average 30 wins for the next 3 years, and his contract extension is for 5, you'd imagine he'd likely retire after this this contract. But who knows? Some guys and gals have coached in their 80s, so we'll see how he feels after that. But I think this year's celebration isn't something Geno has entirely warmed up to, and for the exact reasons we talked about before. And he's candid about it. You know, some of the quotes that I took from some of the articles written about this, this is a quote from Geno. They've had a very difficult time with me trying to get some cooperation for this thing. I'm not being very cooperative. So if you were to ask me, tell me what the agenda is, what's going to happen, I would tell you I have no idea. And I know they've got something planned, and I don't know what it is, and they know what it is, but I do not. So it sounds, he's very, it's kind of, it was said in a very kind of loving, self-deprecating, like, listen, if you want to celebrate this, I'm here for it. I'll appreciate it. But it's got to be difficult, because coaches want to coach, and they also want to appreciate, but you don't do a lot of reflecting during the season. So when you break a record like this, it's got to be interesting, just the perspective of that. But even the idea of this record-breaking win, an event that will be monumental in the world of sports, is something Auriemma looks at with his usual wry humor. A quote from him: "I'm not looking forward to that night, to be honest with you," he said. "From what I understand, there's a lot of people coming that I have no business being there in the middle of November, in the middle of the week. Really, they should find something better. We should Zoom it, let them watch it at home. I get a rash just thinking about it." That's just, and again, I go back to that like comedic little twist where he is that kind of tortured artist, where he feels like you should be doing something better with your time besides fawning over me. But back to his journey. It began with UConn in 1985, when he took over a program with only one winning season to its name. One of the first moves he made as a head coach was hiring Chris Dailey as his assistant, beginning a partnership that would define women's college basketball. In their first year, UConn went 12-15. A small but significant step forward. But by 1989, they had made their first NCAA tournament, and 2 years later, their first Final Four. The real breakthrough came in 1995, my favorite year personally. It's funny, when I thought we were getting really good, like in the late 80s, we were going to our first Final Four in 91. This is a quote from Geno. Nobody gave a damn, he recalled. Like, we went to the Final Four, and there was like one reporter and one guy with a camera. And I thought, man, how's this possible that nobody cares? And I was pissed. And he should have been. And I know a lot of people in Connecticut were too, because we cared. Geno reminisced about the moment when he realized the intensity of the attention that they'd earned after that first championship. When we won a national championship in 95, this is a quote from Geno again. We were on our way back, and we were on a bus, and Jamelle said, "This is like OJ, with the helicopters and everything." And I said to then program administrator Jeff Hathaway, I said, "Hey, Jeff, is there any way that we can do what we just did and not have to deal with that? We're going to have to deal with that," he said. And he said, "No, there's no way." And it's been all downhill since then, to be honest with you. So for Geno, again, the attention, the podcast, the media that they have, it's something he's never felt comfortable with. And he's quoted as saying, "So I've never been comfortable. I fake it pretty well," he said. "I act like I do. I act like I like it. But I think the overall feeling that I've always had has always been the focus needs to be on the actual players that are actually playing. But I also understand it. Don't get me wrong. I understand it." So at least he understands it. He understands me doing a whole podcast on him versus talking about his players who are about to play tomorrow. So that is at least reassuring that if by chance someone was to send this to him in appreciation, he understands that we understand him. He understands us. Even walking onto the court, especially during the early years when he had to cross from the East Tunnel to the bench, was an ordeal for him. It didn't feel right here, remember? I feel like everyone was watching my entrance. Now the team enters through the South Tunnel, sparing him the cross-court walk. Yeah, I can see that. I can see the thought process there. But again, perhaps one of the hardest moments for Geno was his induction into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. The ceremony, packed with legends and media, was an overwhelming experience. He's quoted, "Looking out, I couldn't speak. It was really hard," he said. I look back on it and go, that's not what I wanted to say. And I was just mumbling nonsense, I guess. I don't know. Just saying words. I lost complete train of thought. Despite his discomfort, Auriemma acknowledges that this is the price of what he's built. Quote, "It's a funny thing when I thought we were getting really good, like in the late 80s, going to the Final Four, and nobody gave a damn. But as this success grew, so did the attention. And for Auriemma, a reluctant celebrity, the spotlight has always been something to tolerate, not enjoy." So what's in store, you might ask, for the UConn's 40th season under Auriemma? Between the reunion event, which I'm heard has plenty of people coming for that FDU game, UConn Dairy Barns, special ice cream flavors like Legend Berry Legacy, and Geno's Championship Sunday. So if you're in the area, please check that out. This season will certainly honor all of Auriemma and Dailey's accomplishments. But yet for Geno, the real celebration happens on the court, in the locker room, and with the accomplishments of his players. So while the celebration may go on around him, his heart, just know that when you see him and he's smiling and he's tearing up, his heart remains with the game, with the team, and with the Huskies who made it all possible. When we return, we're going to talk about where would Geno be without Chris Dailey, his right hand, that deserves all the credit in the world. Chris Dailey, a true icon. Hey, college basketball fans, let me tell you about a game changer, Z-Biotics. I know, I'll just be honest with you, I was a bit skeptical at first, but I recently tried it after a night out with friends, gave Z-Biotics, the pre-alcohol probiotic, a try. It's kind of incredible. It was invented by PhD scientists to help you feel better the morning after. Here's the deal. When you drink alcohol, it turns into a toxic byproduct in your gut. That's what really causes these rough mornings, not dehydration. So that fog, that kind of, that haze, Z-Biotics tackles that head on with the enzyme to break it down before it even hits you. I made my first drink of the night, and the next morning was good to go. No sluggishness. I was sharp, ready for the day. If you're ready to try it, go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. They even have a 100% money back guarantee. So if you've got nothing to lose, why not give it a shot? Thank me later. Z-Biotics. Check it out. You know, there's nothing like the atmosphere of a live basketball game. I hope you're going tonight to gamble. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the court, even the chance of seeing a celebrity courtside, like Little Red maybe. One of my favorite memories was catching an NBA game while back in Connecticut when I moved to New York. I went to Madison Square Garden, where a store south. Hello, the vibe, the crowd. It's something you just don't get on TV. So with Game Time, it's easier than ever to get those games. They've got this awesome new feature called Game Time Picks that curates the best deals on seats, cutting through all the fluff so you don't have to scroll through thousands of tickets. It's not just sports. You can find tickets for concerts, theater, comedy. I was looking at an upcoming game on the app, and the deals they offer are legit. I hope you're using it for UConn football because you can see the seat before you buy. All-in pricing with no hidden fees and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time even covers your ticket if something goes wrong. So if you don't want to make it, if you can't make it to a game or concert or show without the hassle, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So what time is it? Game time. Who? You're back on Locked On UConn, final segment of today's program. Something special today about the Geno Auriemma tribute. To truly understand the impact of Geno's legacy, we have to take a closer look at his longtime partner in the building. It's associate head coach Chris Dailey. Chris has been at UConn for 39 seasons, right by Geno's side, joining him in 1985 when he first arrived in Stores. Together, they took a struggling program with one winning season in its history and transformed it into an unmatched powerhouse in women's college basketball, thus changing the course of women's sports for years to come. Chris Dailey has been instrumental in recruiting, coordination, and game strategy, helping to lead UConn to 11 NCAA titles, 59 conference titles, and six perfect seasons. I love the UConn men. I love the UConn women. We have 6 championships on the men's side. The women have 6 perfect seasons. Just think about that. That's insane. With Dailey as the coordinator of UConn's recruiting efforts, the program has produced 47 All-Americans, reached 23 Final Fours. It's just end of sentence there. 23 Final Fours. She played an essential role in shaping the culture of UConn basketball, emphasizing excellence, hard work, and a winning mindset that has defined the Huskies for nearly 4 decades. Promoted to associate head coach in 1988, Dailey has not only been the anchor on the sideline, but also stepped up as an undefeated interim head coach. I don't know if anyone knows this, but she's led the Huskies 17 times. She's 17-0 when she has taken over. Her leadership was first tested in 1989 when she guided UConn to its first ever Big East title when Geno served a suspension. She stepped up again in 1997, leading the team to the Big East championship when Geno was absent due to the passing of his father. More recently, she stepped up for 2 regular season games in 18 and 19 season. In the 2019-20 season, the first 2 games of the 21 NCAA tournament, and 4 games in 22-23, as Geno dealt with the loss of his mother. Each time, Dailey has upheld the program's high standards, showcasing her exceptional coaching acumen and deep commitment to this team. Chris Dailey's accomplishments have not gone unrecognized. She was inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 2018, a rare honor for an assistant coach. Underscoring her impact in the sport, she's also inducted into the Connecticut Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013. Received the Distinguished Service to Basketball Award from the New Jersey Sports Writers Association, and earned the prestigious Joe Lapchick Character Award in 2019. Her undefeated record as an interim head coach reflects not only her basketball IQ, but also the immense respect and trust she commands from the players. There's no drop-off. Dailey has a unique ability to bring out the best in her athletes, creating a seamless transition whenever she steps into Geno's role. This consistency, this duo of strength under pressure have made her an invaluable part of UConn's success story. As fans, we are incredibly lucky and blessed to have witnessed this extraordinary partnership between Geno and Chris. Their combined leadership has not only brought championships, but has also set a standard of excellence that resonates across all of college basketball and sports. 4 decades, they've given UConn a foundation built on dedication, resilience, and an unbreakable bond that has shaped generations of players. Chris Dailey's influence, along with contributions of former coaches like Jamelle Elliott, Shea Ralph, Carla Berube, Tamika Williams-Jeter, Tonya Cardoza, Marisa Moseley, Morgan Valley, and even current staff like Ben Kantor, has created a legacy that goes beyond the court. This program has been a family, a place where players and coaches alike feel connected for life. For us fans, it's a privilege to witness this unique era in sports. And it's sad that we're on the back end of it, but we're not just cheering for the team. We're part of this legacy that has impacted the game itself. Geno, Chris, and all the incredible staff members have given us unforgettable moments. And as we celebrate Geno's 40th season and his eventual wins record, we're reminded of how lucky we are to be a part of something so rare and so special. This is why this is more than a winning program. It's a family, and it's one we're incredibly fortunate to be a part of. That's today's episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and to remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. It's been the goal for 40 years. Thank you to Geno and Chris and all. And as always, go Huskies.